Welcome to a very special, a very sad episode of Uncanny Treks. I'm Bob in Cascadia. That's Matt in the Southland. And Matt, we're commemorating an end. We're commemorating an end to H2sh.
Is it really an end, though, Bob? Is it? This is just part one, isn't it? This is just part
Well,
one.
They're advertising part two, or as they're doing it, H2sh squared, Matt. H2sh squared. That's how they're advertising it. But do you think we're ever going to see that? I don't think we're ever going to see that.
Probably not, Bob.
We're going to talk about the last two parts of H2sh. That's Batman 162 and 163. At some point, we're supposed to get H2sh squared, but I just don't see that happening.
After what I've read here, Bob, I don't see this ever happening, and I don't get it. I get nostalgia. I get that part. But I just don't get why this is what's created to feed that nostalgia.
The thing I don't get is why they waited so long.
That's the real thing, too. It could have been a direct sequel to Hush if it wanted to be.
In some ways, it does feel like a direct sequel to H2sh. Other than the presence of Damian and Jason Todd, it really does read like it takes place the day after the original Hush.
You also feel like he had to play catch up. And we mentioned this in some of the other episodes where we covered Hush, that it feels like, I think by the third issue, DC editorial was, dude, this isn't jiving correctly. You've got to add in some little pieces here to make sure that you're connecting recent DC events and not throwing them away. When Bane shows up, that it ruined it for me. There's no way that Batman and Damian are okay with Bane after he killed Alfred. No way.
Clearly, Jeph Loeb just doesn't know that happened.
Exactly. And you can see that in the comic as it's written. Now we're here, and we continued on with the issues, and the Bat family, they're no longer happy with Batman because he saved the Joker and he's going out of his way to keep the Joker alive when the Joker's caused so much strife and chaos in their lives throughout the years. Okay, we've seen this story before 100 times.
Yes.
There's nothing new here. In fact, we're rehashing the other Hush, just Batman saving Joker's life instead of him wanting to murder him like in the last one. It's just the opposite piece.
I'm not saying this to praise the original Hush, but it's interesting that the original Hush has a plot in as much as it is a mystery because it's who is Hush, at least gives you the appearance of forward momentum. But am I wrong? Because, Matt, it's been a week and I've already totally forgotten what happened in these comics, but am I wrong in just saying that there's no forward momentum at all? There's no mystery here. Oh, it's a fight comic, and what different incarnations of the Batman family are going to fight what different incarnations of Batman villains? That's all. That's the only forward momentum we have, right?
It's putting a bunch of action figures into a bag, drawing them out, and writing a comic about which ones you pull out, and calling it a mystery.
Exactly.
They tried to trick us the first time around by making it seem there's going to be some crazy person underneath those bandages. It wasn't Tommy Elliott. It was the purloined letter, though. Tommy Elliott was right there the whole time. But there's none of that here. It's him again. And we've had some ups and downs with Hush throughout the years, which Bob and I have covered in the podcast. We have gone crazy level intense covering Hush. If you need to know about Hush, go back in our previous episodes. We're there. We go through every incarnation mention of Hush in DC Comics.
We did the original H2sh, Hush Returns. We did Hush Money. We did House of Hush. We did Heart of Hush.
They're all there, even the little spin-off pieces that had Hush Goes to Hawaii. But here, we threw all that out. He does mention that at one point in one of these issues that he's going to cut out Batman's heart like he did to Catwoman. So at least that was acknowledged.
I forgot that. That's a good pull. And it is interesting because I was going to say a minute ago, not only has Loeb not read any Batman comics since he wrote the original Hush, he hasn't even read any Batman comics with his character Hush.
All the past trauma throughout these issues of all the main characters, all the Bat family. And we've done this before, though. Much longer arcs, much more personalized arcs for these characters. It does not have the emotional impact, especially with Jason Todd. Because once again, if this was direct sequel to Hush where we saw Clayface as Jason Todd and is he not alive, maybe this would be fun. Not now when we've had 20 years of Jason Todd stories.
One other interesting connection to make back to our coverage of the original Hush. So in the original Hush, I think we forget about this, but the original Hush actually did tie up a lot, or at least mention a lot of long-standing issues in Batman continuity. You remember there's a cameo from Chandra King Solving,
Lady Shiva.
The fact that they brought in Harold and got rid of Harold, and Harold had long been a dangling plot thread in 90s Batman. They bring up Batman being influenced by Alan Scott. Green Lantern is a thing. They even mention Sarah Essen, right? Essen had been killed only maybe 4 years before original Hush started. But it's funny to compare the original Hush is batting so much cleanup for 90s Batman continuity. I don't think original Hush is good, but it's funny that Loeb was plugged into 90s Batman in a way that he's just not plugged in at all to any Batman since his original Hush.
Giving Hush a cool gun that shoots surgical needles or knives.
That does tie into how Paul Dini's made Hush a medical villain. That's where Hush lands Dini doing him. He becomes the new crime doctor.
I want an action figure with this gun, though. I want a kid's action figure, not a cool adult display action figure of Hush. One when you get at Walmart with this gun that shoots the little scalpel.
You really want an image of Hush in your home?
If he's got this cool scalpel gun and it's spring-loaded.
Do you really want your nephews, nieces, or cousins playing with a Hush action figure?
Plenty of other better villains they could be playing with, Bob.
Exactly. There's better things that they could pull out of the toy box.
Like the villain that was introduced in this run, Bob. Quiet.
Oh, I've already forgot about Quiet.
There was another one too, but she disappears towards the end.
Is there a big swole guy who was not in these last couple issues?
That's what I'm talking about. He's Quiet, I think is his name. Maybe Silence.
We didn't cover H2sh Part 5 back when it came out because we didn't have much to say. That's a Batman 160. And I still don't have much to say, but I'll make 3 quick observations. At one point, Batman is talking about how he's going to take the fight to Batgirl, and he says she started it. Makes fun of Batman for talking like a 5-year-old. And Catwoman is right to do that. But in that moment, you can't help but feel Jeph Loeb is making fun of his own comic.
That bit of dialogue was so bad. Even if you try to do it in the Batman voice, it still doesn't work.
If you do it in the deep Batman voice, it only sounds 100 times more childish. And speaking of bad dialogue, we also have the second thing from this issue, 162, Part 5. We have the worst riddle in Riddler history, Matt. Riddler has this riddle on page 12. You can read it if you want. I'm not going to read it. It's so bad, it's not worth repeating. But I wanted to frame what a terrible riddle this is.
Is it this one, Bob? Is it, what time is it to expect the unexpected? Answer, Nigma time.
Yep.
And he's in his cool exoskeleton suit.
Yep. That's the worst riddle in Riddler history.
Makes him look beefy.
It almost feels Loeb is purposefully writing this as bad as he can to make fun of it. That's almost the conclusion you have to draw.
One thing I will say about issue 162 is that towards the end of this issue, after you have had these battles, let's highlight a couple of what we see here, because you did mention earlier that we get the action figures being pulled out of a bag. We get Batman versus Catwoman. We get Robin versus Damian versus Batman. We get Riddler versus Batman. We get Hush versus Nightwing, Huntress, and Batgirl. We get Nightwing versus Hush. We get Batman versus Hush. We get Huntress versus Jason Todd Red Hood.
Which that's the one I wanted to highlight, because of these possible combinations, all of those combinations feel pretty familiar to me. I don't know that Huntress has ever fought Red Hood. Now, there's a lot of Batman family comics, so it's entirely possible it's happened and I've not read it, or I'm not remembering it. Maybe I'm the same as Jeph Loeb. I've been accusing Jeph Loeb not having read any comics since the original Hush. But versus Red Hood is an interesting character fight to me. It seems like that should have more weight and it should be more interesting than, like you say, Matt, 2 action figures thrown against each other, which is what it is here.
Jason Todd doing the cop-out of acting like he's hurt and going to die and deceiving Huntress. Come on. It's so stupid.
In part 6 of H2sh, the final part, Batman number 163. I know that the main plot, in as much as I remember it, and listeners, I did not go back and read the first 4 parts. I'm sorry. I just reread 162 and then read 163.
Don't worry, listeners. I went back and read the whole thing just for you.
Wow.
Primarily because I had no clue what happened in the first couple of issues and was so lost.
I get that Hush has manipulated Red Hood to join him. I get that. That's how Loeb is selling Hush in H2sh, is that he's this master manipulator, which I guess you need an angle. Why not? But why is Red Hood so emotionally attached to Hush? I get that he's been manipulated into helping him, but I don't mean this in a pejorative way towards homosexuality. I mean it in a pejorative way to this comic, but it almost reads like Red Hood is Hush's lover, that he's so upset about Batman hurting Hush.
I don't get that part either. But the other reason that Red Hood is upset is because Batman put a gun to his head and was going to shoot him.
This does get to something that's a little bit tragic about Red Hood, and I don't mean tragic in Red Hood's story, but tragic in the situation of Red Hood, is that it's possible to write really good Red Hood comics, right? We did the Juni series, Boy Wonder. We covered Boy Wonder for the podcast a couple years ago, Matt. Great comic. The issue focused on Jason Todd is really good. That Red Hood series that started, I think it was this year or last year, and then got canceled because of right-wing outrage. I don't know if that would have been amazing, but it was a pretty strong start to a comic. That could have been a good Red Hood series. The Scott Lobdell Red Hood comics are not great, but they're somewhat interesting, right? So it's possible to do good Red Hood stories. But the problem with Red Hood, though, is he's always going to be defined by his relationship to Batman and the Joker. And that in itself is not a problem, but the problem is going to be you're always going to have writers like Loeb who come on and who just ignore everything that's happened with Red Hood before. So you're always going to reset to the same stupid dynamic with Red Hood, and I don't think you can tell interesting stories that way. In theory, it should be possible to tell good Red Hood stories. Granted, there's always some danger of reset. This is comics. But we've seen over time Dick and Tim and Damian and Barbara's relationships with Batman evolve. But I don't think we're ever going to be able to see that with Jason just because he's always going to be so defined by the resurrection, right? Two other things I wanted to say about the last issue of H2sh, the last issue we'll ever see. When we first see Riddler in part 6, I thought he was Oliver Queen because I totally forgot that Riddler was in the comic, despite his stupid costume being the main point of interest in the first two parts. I think there was so much backlash about that stupid Riddler costume that they changed it. So they have him in a fairly generic Robin Hood style hood.
He's nowhere near as buff looking as he was in the others.
It seemed like Loeb and Jim Lee were trying to do their version of Venom Riddler from the early 90s and the early parts of H2sh.
I had forgotten the whole plot of Batman blew a hole in the ground and wound up meeting all the villains. It threw me for a loop, which is why I had to go back and reread the whole thing. The cover itself is an homage to, do you remember that cool fold-out print where it had all the villains on it?
Part of the original.
Batman was laid out in front of a tombstone and Joker had his bang gun. It had all the villains lined up across his grave.
There was all the speculation about what the symbolism.
Correct. Is Batman going to die? Is this the end? Who's the real villain? This is what he tried to do with this cover. It is not the same quality by any means. In the comic, we've got Killer Croc, Bane, Joker, Clayface, the Penguin. Random, they're all down there. Then Joker makes the joke, we're the all-new Bat family. And Batman just goes along with it, has no issues. They go and they reach H2sh. And what does H2sh do to Batman, Bob? He kills him, Bob. He kills him.
Which sets up Talia has to come in and rescue. So she puts Batman in the Lazarus pit. And Matt, you remember how with the Lazarus pit, it makes Ra's al Ghul crazy when he comes out?
Not Batman, Bob.
Not Batman. Being in the Lazarus pit makes Batman super horny. So that's how we end H2sh Part 1. H2sh to the first Power Man.
It's rough. And the weird thing, too, is there's a dichotomy to this that's in the first issue of this. Talia rescues Batman in the beginning by giving him CPR, then flies off on her plane or whatever. Then here at the end, Bob, she rescues him once again, puts him in the Lazarus pit. All right, Bob, we said a long time ago that when we finished with H2sh and we got through H2sh 2, that we were going to look at possibly re-ranking where H2sh falls within our comic book rankings.
It was always a source of annoyance to me because H2sh is number 15 on our 38 item list. Currently, H2sh sits at number 15, which is in between Archie meets Punisher and Punisher meets Batman. And it sits above Batman Broken City, its immediate successor, which I, of course, like a lot better. But we do tend to consider things as wholes here, right? We considered Archie meets Punisher with the book that is somewhat set up as its sequel, the two Punisher meets Batman. We considered the two Archie versus Predators together. We considered New Avengers and Secret Wars together. When things are linked, we sometimes rank them together. So under that logic, what Matt is thinking and what I'm thinking is that H2sh, if you rank it with H2sh, that's going to make Hush plummet down the rankings. So the real question for me, Matt, is right now at the bottom of our list, position number 38, the worst comic we've talked about on the podcast so far is the A.J. Lieberman run on Gotham Knights, which encompasses the original Hush 2, the original H2sh, Hush Returns. To me, the answer is clear, but I don't know if it is for you. Do you think the new Hush 2, H2sh, do you think it is worse than Hush Returns, Matt?
So the question is, do we hate H2sh original version more?
Yeah, do we hate original flavor or new flavor H2sh? Even though it's very much in my interest, Matt, to get Hush as far down this list as possible, because there's a lot of things underneath Hush on this list that I think are much better than Hush. But I do have to say, I was initially reluctant to re-rank this because it's not finished. We don't know what's going to come of H2sh. We don't know what's going to come of
Do you think, Bob, he's going to be able to write himself out of this? Is that what you're thinking?
The two things that mitigate against my position there, Matt, are one, the fact that this is never going to finish. I'm betting that we're never going to see any more of H2sh. That's one thing. On the other hand, now that I think about it, it does feel perfectly appropriate to compare the original H2sh and the new H2sh, the original Hush 2 and the new Hush 2, because both end inconclusively. If listeners will remember, Hush Returns famously ends with, isn't it a caption that says, "This has been a controversial series, reader. What do you think happens?"
Yeah. What do you think happens next?
Is it Joker and Hush shooting guns at each other?
Joker has some sort of thing implanted in him that Hush can set off that will stop his heart. Then they're all on a roof, and Batman's there too, and Batman has control of the thing that we never got an answer. It's the same thing here. Batman and Talia, do they have another kid?
My answer to Hush Returns being better than H2sh, I would argue that although obviously Hush Returns doesn't succeed at anything it tries, it does try to do a lot more than H2sh. It tries to also be a sequel to The Killing Joke. It brings in Green Arrow and Prometheus. It has a more creative use of Clayface. Now, all of this is terrible if you read Hush Returns.
Awful. Don't let that, those are cool characters. I like them. Don't let that sell it for you.
But I would argue, though, that it is trying to do stuff and it has a plot, which is not something you can really say about H2sh. It's not something you can say about the new flavor of Hush 2. So
I am good with that. I agree, Bob, that H2sh, the H2sh new flavor is worse than H2sh original flavor. All right. Okay. I'm in agreement with that. But we're ranking them as together.
Yes.
So how does that fit in?
I would argue, and I think you were sympathetic to this argument at an earlier point, but maybe your mind has changed. But I would argue that you can see flaws in the original Hush.
Oh, yes.
Now that you've seen what it's produced.
The only thing I could think to do is if we were to look at what issues we do have between 15 through 38 and say, is Hush, the original, better than any of these issues at all? Which going through, I'm not going to go through every one of them, but just going through, is the original Hush better than Infinity Gauntlet?
No.
No. Is it better than the original X-Men Kirby Stan Lee run, the first 19 issues of X-Men? Hell no. Better than the original run of Avengers? I don't know.
Get more questionable.
Black Knight I enjoyed.
Black Knight a lot more, yeah.
Superman v FF, I don't know, maybe same ballpark-ish, maybe. Now we're starting to get in an area where it's, okay, I could agree that Hush could fall here maybe with Hush 2.
The question is, how much damage do you think H2sh does to the original Hush?
FF 1, 2, 3, 4. Do I want to put Grant Morrison above Jeph Loeb? Yes, Grant Morrison needs to be above Jeph Loeb here.
This may not work for you, but for me, I always prefer J. Lee art to Jim Lee art.
Werewolf by Night? I don't know. Avengers World, we've had a whole episode. Avengers AI, we had a whole episode on those. I'm good with never talking about them again.
If you want to put Hush and H2sh around this neighborhood, I could live with it. Even though I don't love Avengers World and Avengers AI, I find the narratives of them both much more interesting.
We got way more discussion out of them than we did H2sh. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So if there's that much more to discuss about it, come on. They each had separate episodes. Think of all this. We had so much to talk about. H2sh doesn't have any of that, so let's bump it down. If you're good with this, the new number 33. So between Avengers AI and X-Men Grand Design.
I know you don't love Avengers AI. So if you wanted to put it above Avengers AI,
Yeah, let's do that. That way it'll remind me when I see it. I'll be like, okay, there's a reason we put it here for this reason. That I did not like Avengers AI. Hush, I can live with more so than you can, but H2sh, we both agree sucks.
Indeed. It's still a 38 item list because we only added H2sh with the original Hush, but that dropped it quite a number of points. So it went from 15 to the new 31 in between Avengers World and Avengers AI. Now, Matt, I will also add, since we're reevaluating things on the list, I'm still a big fan of Batman Broken City. I still love that comic quite a bit. Since we dropped your favorite comic of all time, the original Hush, if you want to drop my favorite comic of all time, Batman Broken City, a little bit, I could live with that.
I'm actually good, Bob. I think my tastes have been refined as we've continued to read these comics. I'm okay with leaving Azzarello where he's at. Because I understand your appreciation for him, and that's a better spot for Azzarello.
So I definitely think Broken City is better than the next Azzarello comic we have on the list. So right now, Batman Broken City was at 16, but it's moved up to 15 on the list. So in between Archie Punisher Batman at 14 and Gotham Year One at 16 is Batman Broken City. And Suicide Squad Get Joker, which is also Brian Azzarello's, at 17. I guess my question to you, I do prefer Batman Broken City to Gotham Year One. Do you prefer Batman Broken City to Gotham Year One, or would you like to shift those two spots? I could see an argument for either.
Tom King was Gotham Year One, and Phil Hester was the...
Art. Very good art on all three of these comics, Broken City, Gotham Year One, and Suicide Squad Get Joker. Very different art, but very...
I feel good with this list now. Where we originally had Hush, it was too high.
It just took H2sh to clarify.
Once we realized that they didn't have much more in the engine,
changes had to be made. Dear listeners, thank you for going on this long journey of Hush with us. We covered the original Hush, we covered Broken City, we covered lots of Paul Dini's run on Detective Comics, we covered all of Gotham Knights, we covered Paul Dini's run on Streets of Gotham, and we covered all 6 excruciating parts of H2sh. If H2sh Squared ever comes out, if H2sh to the Second Power comes out, maybe we'll look at that too then. I'll
look at it. I don't know if I'll cover it. And we may be dead by the time it comes out, so...
That's in some ways, I hope I am dead. All right, this has been Uncanny Treks. I'm Bob and Cascadia. That's Matt in the Southland. Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks for listening.